I'm going to end the poll. And hello everyone, this is Ali Azzeddin from 4th Generation 4 Education. I'm so excited to have all of you here online. Helen and Malcolm, 80% of the attendees are based in Asia, 2% are in Africa, 3% are in Europe, 14% are in the Middle East, and we have some people watching from North America, so very early for them. We're missing our friend in Australia because it's their midnight, and maybe our friend in South America. 76% they are teachers, some are coordinators, and then for our attendees who are watching us today, we have 37% they feel that the self-management skill is the most important skill for these days. In the second place, we are getting the communication skill, and the last one is the research skill. So let me give it a start today. I'm so happy again to welcome Helen and Malcolm for this webinar, and I would like to remind everyone that the whole week is about 21st century skills, or the ATL. We are going to talk about them today in English. If you are a French speaker, join us on Wednesday, same timing. We will discuss them in French with a different kind of a presentation and different kind of a content or different approach. Bianca is in our attendees. Hello, Bianca. And then if you are an Arabic speaker, you can watch us on Friday for the Arabic session and with Lana, and Lana is also in our attendees today. So let's give it a start now. 1 hour with Helen and Malcolm. Pause for thought, 21st century skill. Helen and Malcolm, welcome again.
Thank you, Ali, and hello everyone. Quick introduction for myself. I'm Helen Barett. I'm currently living in the UK. Currently the sun is out, but it's very cold. I'm a lifelong learner. I've been in education all of my life, teacher, school principal, formerly the head of the primary years program with the International Baccalaureate. I'm now a coach and consultant. Something about me, I have a 16-year-old daughter called Evie who adopted Frank the cat. Frank likes twiglets, as you can see, but he does not like wearing his birthday hat that Evie made for him this year.
Hi, I'll be joining Helen today. I'm sure I know many of people on this session, so great to see you all, and hi, Bianca. Yeah, I'm Malcolm Nicolson. I worked for the IB at the same time as Helen. I was there for 8 years, and I was head of NYP development and head of diploma program development, with a particular emphasis for each of developing ATL skills, introducing 21st century skills. And I was the one that was responsible for the big review of the NYP called Next Chapter. That was me. And yes, the funny thing about me, if you look at me, you might be surprised to hear, but I do have 5 international football caps. And if you want to guess for which country, just stick it in the chat box. And it wasn't England.
Thank you, Malcolm. Ali, I'd like to start today's session slightly differently. I'm sure that in the present circumstances, in these challenging and difficult times, we are all quite mindful of the importance of our health, our social and emotional well-being, and those of the children and the people that we work with. So something that I learnt over the last couple of years, I've been working on mindfulness education, is the importance of expressing gratitude. And this practice has been shown to have a positive impact on students, children's and adults' mental well-being and health. So I thought it might be nice to start today with just reflecting really on something that we perhaps feel grateful for, something in our lives that we appreciate and that has brought sort of joy. If people would like to post something in the chat box, that's great. Otherwise, just give a little attention to something that you today, you feel grateful for. I say this because I would like to express my gratitude, Ali, to you, and to the educators who are with us today for all that you are doing and continue to do in such difficult and challenging times. Ali, I know that you're working so hard with 4 generations, and there are teachers the world over who are doing all they can to look after the care and needs of their students. So for that, today, I'd like to express my gratitude.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you for all the attendees who started also sharing some of their ideas. And I'm keeping an eye on the Facebook, because also people are watching us on Facebook from Japan, from Jordan, and from Lebanon, and even from the UAE. People are thankful and grateful for the health, for the happy weather, and for all these connection and the technology that is allowing us to be in touch and work together. Thank you, Helen, for the start.
Thank you, Alan. So today and the session, this webinar, is about pause for thought. We know that you've got some challenges this week, some more webinars to be really thinking deeply about assessment for learning, 21st century skills and approaches to learning. But this session today really is to take stock, just to press that pause button, to take a deep breath and to reflect as reflective practitioners on what we already know about 21st century skills. As teachers, I think we're always rushing forward. There's always something else to do. There's always the next step. And I think the process of reflection, the skill of reflection, is so important in keeping us focused, keeping us grounded, and keeping us well. So this webinar today is really about these 5 reflective questions, thinking about approaches to learning. What do we already know? And what do we think we know? What do we want to learn more about? And we'll get the opportunity to do that through 4 generations this week. What can we share with others? But also, importantly, perhaps what can we stop doing? Teachers are very good at starting new initiatives, taking on more work. What we're not always so good at is stopping things as well. So today is very much about pause for thought, following John Dewey's advice here about we learn not from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. And we're going to cover 4 main areas in this session. Thinking about planning, teaching, and assessing 21st century skills. We're going to be reflecting on how we make thinking visible, how we make learning visible in ways that makes it observable, how we connect 21st century skills with 21st century approaches to teaching, and as a community together, we model the importance of reflection ourselves with questions and answers. But this is, as well as reflection, Ali, this is about changing things, doing things differently, taking the opportunity to reflect and to think about, okay, I'm thinking about these skills. What is it that I want to keep doing because it's successful, it's going well. I want to celebrate that success. What do I need to stop doing? What might I start doing? And what might I do less or more of? So this is the kind of action orientation that perhaps everyone can think about as we go through the webinar. Challenge ourselves. How are we going to change our practice to make teaching and learning 21st century skills more effective? And my first reflection really is about planning. When we think about how we're going to plan to teach 21st century skills, teachers have to make a lot of decisions. And my question here is about what or who drives the decision-making process. So a chance to reflect really on why are we doing what we're doing? Because I think it's easy to sometimes to get caught up in the day-to-day busyness of education and teaching and to challenge ourselves to step back and say, why am I doing this? Which skills do I actually want to teach? At what level? What's driving my decision making? Am I being driven by a curriculum, a topic, a unit? So what's my role in the decision making process? And more importantly, where is the student in this decision making process? And I'd like to remind us of the importance, the enormous and indisputable value of making thinking visible as a strategy and an approach that we can see there promotes engagement, puts students well and truly firmly in the center of their learning experience. It helps them with their understanding, it motivates learners of all ages, and this is where we can actually focus on the agency of learners. They become involved, they become active participants and actors in the learning of 21st century skills. So through visible thinking routines, for example, the information and the data that we generate can help teachers decide which skills need to be taught, which skills students are already quite capable and competent with, where there are any gaps, where students perhaps have misconceptions in their understanding of skills, but more importantly as well, through these routines, we can find out what the students want to learn. We can capture their curiosity. And I'm a huge fan of Kath Murdoch, and I'm driven by Kath's focus on agency, finding out what the students themselves want to learn more about in ways which engage and motivate them. So I thought we'd begin by modeling a visible thinking routine. So we're looking...
I'm joining now, Helen.
Yeah, join in please, Ali. So we're going to, as a group, as a whole cohort, I'd like to find out more about the thinking of our participants. So through the power of 3, 2, 1 bridge, we're going to make our participants' thinking appear, make it visible.
And let me say, we have people watching from South America now, Mexico.
Oh, hello, Mexico, welcome. Welcome to the group. So we're thinking about 21st century skills. And my first question is, what 3 words come into your mind when you think about 21st century skills? Please type 3 words into the chat box.
And do the 3 words at the same time, and make sure you are putting all panelists and attendees. People on Facebook also, we are able to see your answers and your reflection. So Stephanie is saying collaboration, communication, and creativity. Exploration, connection, communication, again, communication, creativity, communication, technology, creativity, connection, thinking and experience, communication, again, collaboration. The 3 C's, IT is coming again, or technology is coming again. Creativity, communication, self-regulation as a new word coming to us, collaboration, socio-emotional skills from Facebook. Hello, Joyce. Agency is coming, self-awareness, flexibility, a new word from the chat. And then communication, creativity again. So many of the words are moving around communication, creativity, emotion is coming again and again now, emotional like skills, and again, creativity and communication. So these are some of the few words that we are getting in the chat, Helen.
Okay, so it sounds as if we're making people's thinking visible, but there's a lot of words, there are a lot of skills, there's a lot of thinking being discussed by everyone, which is good. Okay, moving on. 2. What are 2 questions that you have about 21st century skills? please post your questions in the chat box.
So we might have 400 questions now, Helen, if everyone would like to answer. Or even more, because like we have more than 200 people watching us.
Okay.
So Bianca, she said, how do we plan them? How do we assess them? How we make them more relevant? How do we acquire them? How to make them authentic? How to assess them online? How do we teach them? How to enhance the well-being? How to cater for these skills online? What are the skills of the 21st century skills? How do we engage with them? How do we use them with early years? How can we enhance them again online?
Okay, brilliant. So this short routine is giving us lots of really helpful data about what participants are thinking, what they want to find out more about. So in answer to the question, how do we plan to teach? One thing I would take from this exercise, I'd look through the questions and try and find patterns for what people are most interested in finding out more about. And I would make sure that I build my teaching, build my lessons and activities to address some of the questions that are being raised. So that's, now there's a third element to 3-2-1 bridge. So we've had 3 words, 2 questions. This one's a little bit more of a challenge, I think. But can you think of one simile or one metaphor that you could use to describe 21st century skills?
While you were doing the kind of a recap or transition, Helen, we get more questions about how do we differentiate, how do we ensure that we are ethical, how can we make them like visible or concrete, when do we review them, and then waiting for the simile or the metaphor to come in the chat.
Ali, you might like to keep some of these questions to think about for the sessions this week.
Yes, true.
I mean, I'm hoping that we'll cover many of them in the next 40 minutes. But if we don't, then they're useful questions to carry forward.
So the simile or the metaphor as a sailing boat, they shine as a star, it's an umbrella. What I'm getting as well, so they like the sun, they are like a collaborative bee, and it's like a hybrid car, it's like a growing plant, it's around like the globe, there is no limit, it's like building a house. So these are also some of the simile and metaphor.
Fantastic. And can you see that through these similes and metaphors, we're getting a real insight into what people are thinking about 21st century skills. And we could take some of those metaphors and similes and really unpack them and have a good professional dialogue about why, for example, 21st century skills are like a hybrid car. I'd be really interested to unpick what brings that particular metaphor into mind. But just the point of this exercise being really that we've got a huge number of participants here, but what we've modeled is a technique which shows what some of our colleagues' thinking is, and therefore we've got information that we can build into our teaching and assessment activities. So when I was thinking about this, you know, where would we use and where could we apply this data? And the importance of agency, knowing our students, and being able to provide a curriculum that really wraps around that student, that gives them the skills, the knowledge, and the understanding they need. And what that example routine did was to surface some of the skills maybe that the students already have. We could be thinking about, where are the strengths? I heard a lot about communication, collaboration, creativity. Where are the knowledge gaps or misconceptions? Are there some skills that aren't being referenced or talked about? What do our students, do we really know what our students already know and understand? Or are we just following a program of inquiry? How are we being flexible and adaptive to what our students want to know, need to know, and more importantly, if we're going to engage their hearts and minds, what are our students curious to learn more about? So that data is really important in terms of teaching, assessing, and planning to develop skills. So I'd like to ask our participants, in the spirit of sharing their experience and their knowledge or their curiosity, can they think of a simple online activity that can help make students thinking about skills visible? What would they do, or what have they done successfully in the online learning environment?
So Subha started directly mentioning the whole idea of using visual mind maps online, using jump boards, brainstorming activities online, using Padlets and making collaboration online on Padlets, using some applications like Kahoot or like games, Flipgrid, Nearpod for collaboration, again, Prezi, Padlet, Research Padlet, See, Think, Wonder, Mentimeter, and a lot of other kind of software and application our participants are using to make those skills visible during this time where they are teaching online.
Yeah. Just to flip that around then, Ali, what challenges have people experienced in doing this? What have been the real difficulties?
So let's check about your challenges, our attendees. I'm sure it's a very long list. The time management, internet problem, it's different than communicating face-to-face, the attention span, we are losing all this human connection, again, network issue, lack of IT skills depending on the age of the student, authenticity, missing the eye-to-eye contact. With the early years, it's been very difficult. The balance between the screen time and off the screen, the differentiation online, it was a challenge. Lack of the support from the parents, limited resources, not able to work independently, the documentation, time management is coming again. So those are some of the challenges.
Okay. And I think what's important to note here is that the challenges that we're all facing, on the scale that we're facing them, are relatively new. This is unprecedented times. And I think one of my key messages and reflections is that we're learning together. We're finding together ways of managing and mitigating these challenges. And the creativity and innovation in education at the moment is just awesome. So here are a couple of examples of just models that I've seen in the last couple of days about online, making students thinking visible online, little activities that you can do. This is a learning check-in from Cindy Blackburn and Chad Hyatt. I saw this in Facebook yesterday. But simple check-ins, getting that information, making that thinking visible so that the teacher can then process the data and feed it back into teaching and learning activities. That's one example. Placemat activities we're all familiar with, asking the students to talk about the skill or the disposition that they're working to develop. And in this case, it's about being caring. So there's connection there between 21st century skills and attributes, for example, of a learner profile, how we can bring those things together. So you can see that as this placemat develops, as the thinking moves forward, the skill and the disposition, in this example being caring, it starts to become more evident. The learner here is describing why the skill is important and what it looks like. And once we can describe what that skill looks like, or how it makes us feel or behave, then it becomes, in a way, more observable and in some respects, more focused for teaching. And there are plenty of resources available, freely available through the generosity of our professional communities. And this is one way, this is just one example of making those 21st century skills more concrete, less abstract, more real, and therefore helping to develop a common and shared language about skills, and also a common and shared understanding about skills. If we look at these descriptors, we can then start to look for these attributes and behaviors in our learners. So not does thinking become visible, but learning can become more visible as well. And this is another example of a kindergarten 1 continuum of thinking skills. So obviously these are continuums and rubrics that teachers themselves have developed. But the point here really is to have something that brings people together. So we can have those professional dialogue, we can have that discussion, and we can really start about thinking about specific attributes, specific skills, and how we can build those into our planning and our teaching.
Helen?
Yep.
Helen, can we go back to the previous slide, because unfortunately I cannot share it via the chat. So I would like from our attendees to take a screenshot of this kind of a rubric, and I will share it with them after the webinar, okay? So because I know that we will use it in our following exercise, right?
Yes, so for the following exercise, Ali, we're going to look at the first 4 columns there of that continuum. So we're thinking about thinking skills, but the sub-skills of analysis, evaluation, forming decisions, and generating ideas. So I'd like our participants to really just tune in, turn their attention to those descriptors for those first 4 columns there. This is a great rubric, and credit to Emma Wheatley and her husband Mark Wheatley. Through their website there, they've developed rubrics for many of the 21st century skills at different levels of progression as well. And I've just chosen this one as a descriptor for kindergarten and KG1. These are great rubrics for scaffolding, teaching, planning, and assessing activities. So in this short exercise, Ali, we're going to do some learning observation. So a colleague has been focusing on the development of thinking skills with her class. And now she's asking us to give her some feedback and advice about the kind of thinking skills that the students can be seen using. She wants to know from us, from what we observe, how well the students are using them and what she might think of in terms of next steps for development. So she'd like us to use this rubric here, the one we've just referenced. She'd like us to watch one particular child. She'd like us to focus our observation on a young child called Edward. And she wants us to watch Edward in an outdoor play area. And she'd like feedback from us in the form of a see, a think, and a wonder. So what do we see Edward doing? What are his actions? What do we think his actions show evidence of in terms of skill development? And we're going to use the rubric for that. And then the third part is part of our professional development. Can we think about a question that the teacher might like to reflect on and consider for her next steps of practice? So I hope that's clear. Ali, this is where my technical expertise.
Let's see. So we're going to stop sharing the screen, Helen, now, and do a new share. And I'm so interested in seeing like how you are modeling the observation of the class using also a visible thinking routine with I see, I think, I wonder, and the video is ready. We need just to click on play. Let me remind again all our attendees, you are going to observe this child. His name is Edward, and we would like you to use I see, I think, I wonder for this class observation using the rubric that also Helen shared with us. We're ready to go.
Edward isn't concerned about the flow of water. He's intent on filling up that bucket, jug by jug. But water isn't enough if your liquid is really a potion. Edward makes a prediction based on his work with the potion.
You couldn't get over the sun.
It's confirmed by his friend and what they can see for themselves.
Nick it around. I think it's all over there now.
The language of water comes to life.
What is it?
Good. I'm sure people wanted to see more of what's happening, but we wanted to give you only those 2 minutes. I see, I think, I wonder, and you're reflecting on this short clip of those amazing kids in a KG classroom playing with water. And we're waiting for your responses in that chat. And then again, a reminder, if you have any question for Helen and Malcolm, you can send it in the Q&A. Waiting for your feedbacks. I see children playing. I see Edward overfilling the pot with water. Let me say hello to Maha and Tala. Maha is a regular attendee and Tala is joining us for the first time today. I see them playing. I see them excited, exploring. It was a very hands-on learning activity. I see engagement. Now a question how we can make connections between this is becoming now very fast between the ideas and the overflow and stopping the flow. They are generating idea. I see collaboration. I hear them talking, exploring. I see Edward using a stick. He's making decision. I see them collaborating. I see Edward wanting to fill a bucket. I think he wants to make sure that the water reaches the top. I wonder if he knows how water would be wasted. I see collaboration. And then the chat is becoming very fast. I see measuring. I can still see kids playing and learning. They are enjoying. And then I have 33 list of messages coming in a very fast way. Helen, let me take those 2, learning by doing and working in groups. And I wonder if they are aware of the math that they are doing and embedded in this learning experience.
Great, fantastic. So we can see here from a relatively, if the question is how do we assess skills? I think the key point here is having an idea of the kind of skills that we want to observe. So one of the actions might be, you know, have we got a common and shared understanding, for example, of what the skills and the sub-skills are? So using those kind of rubrics as a scaffold for the observation. But that clip, Ali, was just about 63 seconds long. So what that says to me is we can gather an awful lot of information, authentic information about Edward's development simply through a very short snapshot observation that then gives us the data and the information we need to have conversations as reflective practitioners. So if I mean, our participants have raised so many important observations there. But I think if we look at that rubric, we can see clear evidence that Edward, for example, can make a connection between ideas. We saw him putting things into the bucket, stirring the bucket. And although we couldn't hear what Edward was saying, we had a good idea of what he was thinking and where his motivation was. And then taking that skill, I think you gave an example there, Ali, of saying, I saw Edward filling the bucket. I think he can make connections between ideas. I wonder if he can do that with a larger group, or it takes the teachers thinking forward into other aspects of skill development. And I'm a big believer in doing things quite short, sharp, snapshot. You can, as I say, you can get an awful lot of data. You can assess, you can gather that data, you can process that data, that information in a short amount of time that can then feed into teachers' planning. So it is a little bit around the assessment for learning principles, taking data from the environment, processing it, and then revising learning experiences based on that information. So it's a very powerful, short approach. And I think for me, I really like that see, think, wonder translated into a way of providing teachers with feedback. I think the last point that I'd like to make here is a reflection on the importance of the environment. How the environment can be the third educator in the room. And part of the planning, the teaching and assessing processes involves decision making about how to enable the environment in ways which facilitate that teaching, facilitate the learning, and facilitate the observation. I mean, this is stuff we already know, Ali. We know the importance of the environment, but sometimes we can get caught up and think, is the environment really working well for us? Are we maximizing its value and its importance and the ability to create the environment through which we can implement those authentic learning experiences, which we're used to in a physical environment, but it may be a bit more challenging in an online environment. So again, I'd really like to ask participants, have they got examples or suggestions of how they've used an online environment to create a situation where they can observe virtually their students' skills in action? That's a quick question.
Good, and then we have around 20 minutes left. So our participants and all these connections to the skills online are really important, and we are hearing from everyone from all over the planet, all the attendees. They are saying that we are providing them more choices. We are listening more to the parents. We are using a lot of visible thinking routines. We are using the chat box. We are having daily reflection, breakout rooms, or Zoom interaction. And again, if you want to make sure that everyone is reading your answers, make sure you are choosing all panelists and attendees. We are recording videos, looking at these videos again. Chat box is coming again. We're giving them Google Forms to fill and to complete. We have journals where they can post picture of their work, more kind of like games and online quizzes with open-ended questions, a lot of investigation to be done and to be completed at home. So the portfolios, e-portfolios, video making. I'm going to stop here with all these ideas. You can continue sharing them. And I think it's time to the next step of our session, right?
Such creativity, though, you see, Ali. Yeah. We're dealing with these challenges, we're facing them, and we're managing them.
Very true, very true.
Because we're great. Right, I'm going to hand over to Malcolm now.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you for stirring up such discussion and such creative thinking. It does look like, to some extent, people are having an exercise in alliteration. So many words coming through beginning with C, it's quite incredible. So I'll try not to use words beginning with C, and let's see how long that lasts. Thanks, everyone, for your input. It is absolutely amazing. But we've been talking about these skills and thinking about the skills online. And I would argue that perhaps, going back to Helen's previous question, when you use the tools that a lot of you have mentioned, like Seesaw, Kahoot, Padlet, quizzes, and all the other ones, maybe those thinking skills are more visible today than they have ever been. And I think the question for us as educators then is how to use this momentum of using these new tools to make thinking skills and other skills so visible, how to keep doing that in the future. Because never before have we been able to see inside the minds of young people like we are today, because you can see in real time, whichever platform, whichever tool you're using, you can really see what is on their mind and what they're thinking in real time. And as Helen said before, you can then respond to it, which is absolutely amazing. So please use this momentum and take it forwards. But, you know, let's think about what are these skills. There was a fantastic point someone used earlier on. What are these skills? It's as clear as mud, somebody said. What do we mean by 21st century skills? Here's a 21st century skill. You know, is it the fact that, you know, skills are just for the 21st century? You know, the pen has been around for some time, and it still will be, I would suspect. What is a 21st century skill? And we are, of course, talking about skills that we know that will be useful in the workplace in the future. And those studies come out every 2 or 3 years and they change, but it comes back to those C's: creativity, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creative thinking, all those things. It comes up time and time again. And going back to one of the points that Helen made earlier, one of the keys here is not being able to parrot a list of skills and say, these are the ones I've ticked off for this year. It's about identifying what the students need, where their gaps are, and doing that through a shared language. Now, what the IB has done, and Cambridge and College Board and many other providers have done, is come up with a series of words, a language around which we can hang our coat on for 21st century skills. And the IB have chosen 5 categories of skills: thinking, social, communication, self-management, and research. We all know that there are literally thousands of skills within each one of those categories, but they have categorized it in that way. Others may say, well, we're going to go for collaboration skills, entrepreneurial skills, leadership skills, and have other categories. But within a school, the most important thing is that you have a shared language. If we're going to talk about leadership skills, then we all know what we're talking about and we all recognize it as the same thing. So that's the importance of it, whether you're in the IB community with these so-called ATL skills or a non-IB school. That's perfectly fine. Just look for that shared language and categorize your skills so that you all know what you're talking about. But I will argue that We cannot teach these skills separately in an isolated fashion. And right now, today, everybody, I'm going to teach you critical thinking skills and you're going to get it. We have to think about how we teach them. And my argument is that the approaches you use to your teaching methodologies are every bit as important as the approaches to learning skills. And I've highlighted here the IB's 6 approaches to teaching, but fieldwork, Cambridge, etc., all have their own methodologies, which are pretty much the same. Cambridge, IB, fieldwork, you could put a very thin piece of paper between them all, and there really is very little difference, I can assure you. So if we go to the next one, I'll give you my big thought. This is not me saying that my whole life and philosophy on education is based on Finding Nemo. Not all of it, just some of it is based on Finding Nemo. I think that the idea of symbiosis is the most important here. I believe that students will learn skills most effectively in an inquiry-based classroom environment. However, that's where they learn the skills, but if they don't have the skills through which to inquire, then they can't pick up their inquiry skills. I think they are each is needed. You're best teaching through inquiry, but you need to teach students the skills so that they can inquire. The ability to, they're all in, as Kamar says, they're all in the enhanced PYP. The 5 categories of ATL skills were originally in the PYP, known as transdisciplinary skills. The MYP has always had ATL skills because the MYP was, of course, operated and run by geniuses. No? Okay. So the MYP team took some of the language from the PYP, added it to the MYP, and despite all the protestations of the DP community back in the 2000s, we now have the same 5 categories across the IB community. And you have those 5 categories and you choose whichever skills you want to teach within them. But we need a symbiotic approach. You think of Finding Nemo, just keep swimming, keep learning, keep swimming, keep learning from your mistakes. If you swim into an enemy that actually stings you, learn from it. Don't make the same mistake twice. It's called failing well. And for those of you who were at Lance King's webinar recently, he'll have talked a lot about learning from your mistakes and learning well, learning how to not fail badly, failing well rather than failing badly. And that's really important. And that's what Nemo does. Just keep swimming. Or if you want to really think about those affective self-management skills, think of the turtle, just focus, dude, focus, okay? Thinking of those ways that we can help students to focus. How can we do it online? How can we help through mindfulness online so that students can focus? Okay, we'll go to the next one. How can we then, what can we find? We talk about inquiry, we talk about skills. What help is there out there? Well, of course, as someone mentioned in the chat just now, the PYPs just recently put out a whole load of resources. Some of them are quite good. So do make sure that you have a look if you're a PYP teacher and see what the PYP put out there. It's really extensive. Also in the IB diploma program, there's a lot of resources, and in the MYP. And Cambridge have lots and lots of skills-based resources. Fieldwork has some fantastic assessment for learning and skills development resources as well, with some fantastic rubrics. So there's a lot out there. But if we look at the next slide, we'll see this is a particular place to go. Google it, Lalatat. This is what Bianca will be talking about a little bit on Wednesday. This is what Lance King has come up with. Learning about learning and thinking about thinking. Some fantastic resources there where you can actually find skills exercises on the website itself, and students can work on the platform and develop their skills across all of those 5 categories. It's a brilliant resource. Another place to look, if you're interested, is look at Tracker Apps, APPS, Tracker Apps, another great resource for some fantastic ideas to develop ATL skills thinking. So I think what's important for you now, though, having heard us talk a lot about skills, is to think about what next for you. Where do we now take ourselves? And this goes back to the very beginning when Helen challenged you to think, we're going to be learning, but what do we then do about it? Let's take action. What will we start doing, stop doing, keep doing, do less of, and do more of? Okay, these are the things to think about. So just take a moment in your own mind. What do you think in the next week, the next month, the next 3 months, what will you do differently? What will you start doing? What resources might you look up? What small actions, what big actions? How will it impact your course planning, lesson planning, unit planning? How will it impact the collaborative meeting times you have with your colleagues? Will skills become a standing item on your departmental or team meetings, for example? So how will you start to incorporate what you've learned in the future? Now, while you're thinking about that, we've come to the section of the session where we can have some question and answer to me, to Helen, or even to each other if you so wish. So please fire away your questions, and Helen and I will be absolutely delighted to field off and try to answer some of them, or all of them even.
So amazing timing, Malcolm. We still have around 8 minutes. According to our participants, I'm getting all those now. Thank you. It was very inspiring, so much of learning. So if you don't mind, Helen, I would like you to stop sharing the screen and remind all the participants, if they have a question, to send it in the Q&A. I would like to highlight our upcoming event. And so this is our website. You can check. So we have some paid workshops this weekend, agency and inquiry on Saturday with Tanya Latanzio. I'm doing a workshop in Arabic about inquiry online. And then, as we said, the full week for our free webinars, it's today, it happened in English. We have one in French for all our French speakers, Les approches de l'apprentissage with Bianca, and we are doing the same topic in Arabic with Lana. So feel free to join if you are a French speaker, Arabic speaker. They are going to address the same topic from a different perspective. And then next month also, we have for our French speaker a whole free webinar about how to use Google Suite. And we have an science, how to teach science online in English. And we are having Reggio Emilia in Arabic. So keep an eye on the website and check all our events. Now, let's go to the question. First question, is it always good to focus only on one skill, Malcolm?
That's a great question. I think that in any one particular unit or course of work, maybe over a few weeks, don't try and focus on too many. Otherwise, you don't hit it in enough detail or at enough depth. So concentrate maybe on 2 or 3, maybe 4 in a 6-week unit, but really do them well. Make sure that the students have multiple opportunities to learn and develop the skill and to practice it and to demonstrate it and to self-evaluate. That's one of the keys, as Helen said at the beginning about reflection. It's about reflecting on your experience. So the students have a chance to reflect on the skill that they developed and to what extent. So less is more is the answer.
Okay, let me also announce, it's a first announcement. In November, we have a full day regarding math and teaching math. So keep it on your agenda. 28th of November, a 6th session about math and teaching math. So stay tuned. Soon we will have the details for you. Helen, another question for you. How do you identify the skill that we would like to focus on during a unit or during a lesson?
Yeah, I was just looking at the questions there, and particularly the ones from Jude and Tala. But how do we prioritize and how do we inspire? And I think for me, that comes back to student agency and doing as much as we can to involve the student in that decision-making process. So capturing all of the, the inquiry, the capturing curiosity. What is it the students really want to learn? What are they curious to find out about more? And then how do we enable the environment so that they're going to enjoy learning? Where do they work well best? Do they work better individually, or sometimes do they work better in collaboration? So for me, Ali, it's really, it's the hard part of early years and primary teaching, getting to know your students whilst also having to manage the drivers, the more kind of external driver of the kind of curriculum or learning that has to be covered. So it's kind of that balance between what students want to learn, what they need to learn because they've got gaps or misconceptions, but then also we do have curriculum coverage to deal with as well. So it's the professional art of the teacher.
Good. I know we have a very long list of questions, but this is the end of our webinar. I would like to invite you to join our Arabic session or French session. And thank you again for Malcolm and Helen for volunteering to do this session. I know I tried a lot to convince you to have to be online, and we've done it. Stay tuned. Hopefully we will have another PD with Malcolm and Helen where we can talk deeper about the ATL, and keep following us. Have a nice afternoon. Bianca, I will be with you live again in a few minutes. And thanks again for everyone, for the people who watched on Facebook and for the people who joined us online here via Zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ali, and thank you everyone for coming. Stay safe and well.
Okay, bye-bye.